Thank you, Mark, for inviting me back. And it is good to be alive, isn't it? I tell you what, it's also good if you're a sports fan, as Darren alluded to earlier. My wife Cindy received, as a Christmas gift, 2 tickets to a musical last night. And I realized that the date of that musical coincided with a very important event, the NCAA basketball tourney. And thankfully, my wife found a friend to go with her to the musical last night, and I got to watch some basketball. I'm particularly proud of the Dayton Flyers, right? Let's go Dayton. We can do it. We can do it. It's also an exciting time because it is baseball season again. In just a few days, we're going to have the opening baseball game, and I absolutely love baseball. I loved it as a kid. I still love it now. And it's just exciting. Perhaps you heard the story about the little guy who loved baseball a lot too. And he grabbed his baseball bat and his baseball as he headed out the back door. And this isn't working, but you can still hear me, which proves that I have a loud mouth anyway. All right, let's try it. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Can you hear me now? All right. All right, let's back to my important story about the little boy who loved baseball. He grabbed his bat and he grabbed his baseball and he was headed out the back door. He just loved baseball and he kept saying to himself, I'm the greatest hitter in the world. I'm the greatest hitter in the world. He got out the back doors and he grabbed the bat and he tossed the baseball up in the air and he swung at that baseball, but he missed. Strike one. Well, he kept saying to himself, I am the greatest hitter in the world. I'm the greatest hitter in the world. He took the baseball again, he threw it up in the air, and he took his bat, and he missed again. Strike two. He wouldn't be deterred. He kept saying, I'm the greatest hitter in the world. I am the greatest hitter in the world. And one more time, he tosses the ball up in the air. He takes the bat, and he swings at it. Strike three. He looks down, temporarily dejected. Then he looks back up. He grabs the baseball. He tosses it up in the air, and he says, I'm the greatest pitcher in the world. I'm the greatest pitcher in the world. All about attitude, isn't it? Perhaps you're about the angel who appeared to a man one day. He said, I've got some good news and I've got some bad news. And the man said to the angel, okay, give me the good news first. The angel said to him, he said, there is going to be baseball in heaven. And God would say, oh, that's great. That's so exciting. Well, tell me the bad news. And the angel said to the man, well, you're the starting pitcher for today's game. If you couldn't tell, I'm a Cincinnati Reds fan. I grew up loving the Cincinnati Reds, especially the big red machine of the 70s. And if you look in my office at home, you would find all kinds of pictures and baseball memorabilia of the Cincinnati Reds. And of course, my favorite was Pete Rose, the all-time hits leader, who definitely had a gambling problem, but aside from that, he knew how to hit the baseball. And he held that record, and he still holds that record. Pete once said, I saw this quote several years ago, he said, quote, I love baseball so much I would walk through hell in a gasoline suit just to play. His priorities were a little mixed up, weren't they? Baseball was invented in the 1860s, a long time ago, and just like any game that's played right, you need to know the rules. Can you imagine if anyone could just make up the rules as you played the game? Well, that would be absurd, wouldn't it? I mean, what if the pitcher decided, okay, I'm going to throw it one time, whether you strike out or whether you hit it or not, then you're going to be out. What if the batter got up as the pitcher was pitching? Say, I'm going to stay up here until I hit the ball, until I actually get a hit. I mean, you can think of all kinds of scenarios. Life is like a game. And sometimes, friends, we may not understand what's going on around us, what's going on in us. We question. We wonder about things we do not understand, right? That's just normal. That's human. And in turn, what we often do, what I do, and I'm sure many of you do, not all of us, we'll pray harder. We'll question more, and we'll wonder more. And we believe sometimes that if we just believe a little bit more, people are going to treat us right. That the pain will go away. That the disease will dissipate. That we'll win the $1 billion NCAA bracket or whatever. I mean, it all comes down to this when you think about it. There are rules for life that we may never understand or accept, despite our questions about the whys. Some things in life just won't make sense to us. As hard as we try to figure it out, even if we're a Christian. You know what I'm talking about? Okay. Now this series, Harv and I talked about this, I guess it's been a couple of months ago now, about doing a series together. We just kind of put our thoughts, and it really fascinated me when Harv started talking about this. And the title is this, that's how the game is played. And I want to assure you that Harv and myself, we don't want to give you just pat answers. We don't want to give you the old spiritual cliches. And my particular theme for this kickoff series is from the New Testament book of Luke. Luke chapter 15, and for many of us, it's a very familiar story. For some of us, this may be the very first time you've heard this. And it's the story about two brothers and their father. The prodigal son, his older brother, and the father. And in a moment, if you'll do this with me, if you'll delve into this familiar story again, or if this is the first time you've heard this, if you'll listen intently, you're going to see, hopefully, that this story deals with each character's own set of rules, and they're all in contrast with each other. It's a story that applies to you and I today, and it's a story to help us see how God works, how the game is played, even when we do not understand what's going on in our lives. Now, I want you to listen to the story. Listen to it. I mean, jump into it. Think about it. Listen.
Then he said, "There was once a man who had 2 sons. The younger said to his father, 'Father, I want right now what's coming to me.' So the father divided the property between them. It wasn't long before the younger son packed his bags and left for a distant country. There, undisciplined and dissipated, he wasted everything he had. After he had gone through all his money, there was a bad famine all through that country, and he began to hurt. He signed on with a citizen there who assigned him to his fields to slop the pigs. He was so hungry he would have eaten the corn cobs in the pig slop, but no one would give him any. That brought him to his senses. He said, 'All those farm hands working for my father sit down to 3 meals a day, and here I am starving to death. I'm going back to my father. I'll say to him, Father, I've sinned against God. I've sinned before you. I don't deserve to be called your son. Take me on as a hired hand.' He got right up and he went home to his father. When he was still a long way off, his father saw him. His heart pounding, he ran out, embraced him, and kissed him. The son started his speech. 'Father, I've sinned against God, and I've sinned before you. I don't deserve to be called your son ever again.' But the father wasn't listening. He was calling to the servants, 'Quick, bring a clean set of clothes and dress him. Put the family ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Then get a grain-fed heifer and roast it. We're going to feast. We're going to have a wonderful time. My son is here, given up for dead and now alive, given up for lost and now found.' And they began to have a wonderful time. All this time his older son was out in the field. When the day's work was done, he came in. As he approached the house, he heard the music and dancing. Calling over one of the houseboys, he asked what was going on. He told him, 'Your brother came home. Your father has ordered a feast, barbecued beef, because he has him home safe and sound.' The The older brother stalked off in angry sulk and refused to join in. His father came out and tried to talk to him, but he wouldn't listen. The son said, "Look how many years I've stayed here serving you, never giving you one moment of grief. But have you ever thrown a party for me and my friends? Then this son of yours, who has thrown away your money on whores, shows up and you go all out with a feast." His father said, "Son, you don't understand. You're with me all the time, and everything that is mine is yours. But this is a wonderful time, and we had to celebrate. This brother of yours was dead, and he's alive. He was lost, and now he's found."
Well, Jesus knew how to tell a story. And if you'll just listen a little bit, synopsis of what's going on here, to help you appreciate what he was saying. Jesus told this story as a way to help first century Jews and non-Jews understand why God does what he does. You see, the Jews believed that they were the chosen people and they were going to be accepted by simply keeping the religious laws and following the rules that they had instituted. But the problem was this: that doesn't work. They kept making rules literally for everything. And by the time that Jesus lived on the earth, I mean, there were thousands upon thousands of rules that they had instituted. That's not how the game's played, Jesus was saying to them. Now, the Jews had trouble believing that Jesus was the Messiah. They had difficulty understanding that, that Jesus, or that God the Father, actually loved all people the same. He showed no favor. It wasn't just a select few. They had difficulty understanding that Jesus had actually come, born to a virgin, to establish a spiritual kingdom, not an earthly one. So there was a lot, you have to understand what's going on, why Jesus told that story. So let's go back even further. Now, we have some students, some quizzers who study the book of Genesis, and you may need to correct me here, but when you go back to Genesis, you see a lot of other stories about brothers, Cain and Abel, Isaac and Ishmael, Joseph and his brothers, who lived apart from the rule that God had established. And as a result, evil crept into their lives and started to infect humanity, poisoning hearts, minds, relationships. And as a result, hatred, pain, separation, war, death, spiritual darkness that we can't even fathom began to grow. The hearts, the minds of humanity. So, as you read the Bible, you come to find out that God would intervene time and time again to rescue humanity from themselves, always to remind us what he expects, how the game is played. When you read how Moses was given the 10 Commandments, you come to understand something about these commandments. You come to realize that God actually gave the commandments to his people a long time ago, help them to understand that every single commandment simply is a way to show how God loves us and how we are to love one another. It's really very simple. And starting with the first humans, Adam and Eve, we also come to see how God establishes these rules for living, how the game is to be played. And the rules that God establishes are all centered around this concept, and I don't want you to miss this, around this truth. It's about relationships, and it's the rule of love. And what happened as we read? What did Satan do? He distorted, he tempted, he deceived humanity into thinking that God was wrong and that we know better and that there's another way to play this game of life. Satan tried